Hi again. Uh, Now it's about 1 year. It's more or less exactly 1 year that I bought the Cessna O-1 über 19 bird dog from Switzerland, from Heiner. And I did really a lot. I made 130 flying hours and more than 500 landings with this 1 year. Every time when I go flying, and even if it's only for 20 minutes, I end with minimum 5 landings. That's the way that I made so much landings. You know, with my father, I trained in only a few days. I made 104 landings in the beautiful landscape of Italy at 17 airports. And this is very important because flying a plane is landing a plane. You can sit a monkey up there inside and he can fly a plane. We have to take care of the landings of this bird dog, and I want to tell you some things that I spoke in my video, but to be honest, in the beginning I made some mistakes and I was very lucky that nothing happened. You know, making a video is the one thing, but most important thing is to practice outside. I read all the manuals, all the books about taildraggers and especially about the bird dogs, all landing tips and everything. And so the theory was quite good. But there's still a little bit difference between talking about landing or landing. Now I feel very comfortable and satisfied with myself and with landing the bird dog. I feel safe. But I do have still a lot of respect, and I think this is very important, always to have respect. I knew many guys from the Austrian military now, and there is a very good thing from a mechanic craftsman, a sheet craftsman, and he said, in the beginning, no pilot crashed the plane, no student, because they were very scared, they have a big amount of respect. The problem became when they had about 80, 100 hours with the bird dog. Then they said, or they thought, yes, it's no problem, it's easy, I'm the master of the plane. And then most of the accident happened. There's a funny thing when the Austrian military, the tower says, when there was a night flying, military night operation, and there was a plane landing, and you watched the plane landing and you see red, green, red, green, red, green, you know it's a bird dog. So the bird dog is very popular for having ground loops, and many ground loops happened also in Austria with the military bird dog pilots. So what did I make wrong in this year? One thing that for me was I always spoke about it, but sometimes I didn't do it. Stick full back, which means elevator up when you're landing out, as soon as your tail touches the ground. You know that I'm going most of the time for the 3-point landing. 3-point landing for me is very good, because for me, when you land in 3-point, look at the angle of the plane. In 2-point landing, your wings are level. In the 3-point, you already have the angle when you are sitting down. So the plane is much slower when you land with a 3-point. I told you that I have a landing field here in Austria with only 200 meters. Useful 160, 170 meters are useful. I tried landings with 2 points, and I had a very bad experience with that. I had a crosswind landing and I landed with 2 points because I tried this several times before with no problems. And at this time I landed with 2 points. The wing was up, I reduced the throttle, and even now I had to push a little bit because I wanted to keep the tail up. And suddenly in this moment a gust of crosswind hits me, a heavy gust of crosswind. What happened? The plane, I can tell you, turned 45 degrees, weather vanes into the wind, and as soon as my tail moves, I added full rudder. Nothing happens, I can tell you. I really got hot. Absolutely nothing happens. I then added brakes, but my landing direction was in this direction and the plane weather vanes. So, like here, that what happens to my tires and to my landing gears. The whole plane was shaking, whoop, whoop, whoop. The only thing that I could do was brakes alone. I wouldn't get it back. I added throttle to have more thrust to the rudder, so the rudder became effective again, but it was still impossible to bring it back completely. It's about halfway down, and then the speed climbs up. I reduced the flaps to 30 degrees because I had 45, and then I could take off again, but it was not straight takeoff, it was a takeoff more or less than like in a slip. This was a very bad experience. I can tell you I don't want to have this anymore. At the end, I made at this day 25 landings after this one with 3-point. With the same gusts of crosswind, I did not have one time a problem. Stick into the wind, as we learned it, the wind comes from the left side, so aileron up, the wind goes over the wing and pushes your wing down. Because the wings of the Cessna Lima 19 bird dog, they are very high, there is a lot of space where the wind can affect, and it's the worst thing that when the wind raises your wing up, what happens? You weather vane into it, and if you wait too long, you will have a ground loop. So react immediately, the wing goes up, aileron to press it back down, correction with the rudder, and always stick full back. And if all these three things are not enough, add brakes. Add your right brake to bring it back to the center line of the runway or to your focus point at the end of the runway. You know, there's a very small angle, it's about 10 or 15 degrees. When you're out of this direction, you will lose the correction of the bird dog and you will have a ground loop. So always be very concentrated when you're landing. The next thing that I had, and I was also very lucky that nothing happened, I came in with a 3-point. All of you know that are going to make 3 points. A 3-point can look like this. 3 points, perfect. Stick full back, roll out, that's it, go for a coffee. But we all know that landings can happen like this. You pull too much. So the first contact point will be your tail gear and whoop, you bounce. Or you come in too flat or too fast and you bounce here, whoop, and go down to a 3-point. That was happening to me. I had my heels down, not on the brakes, came in for a 3-point, but there was a little bit gusty wind from the front. I had absolutely at this day, there was no crosswind, it was really from front. I came in, I bounced and touched down again, but on the first bounce, the plane weather vanes into one direction. It turns a little bit outside. Of course, I added rudder. For me, I didn't feel that the rudder was really effective, so I added brakes and both of my feet went up and were a little bit, just a little bit, standing on the brakes. It looked like this. I came in, whoop, bounced, go up. Now the feet are on the brakes and I touched down again in this position with a little bit brakes. I can tell you, this happened. The bird dog came up, whoop, like this. Immediately I released the brakes, stick full back to bring it down, and I was moving about minimum 10 meters in this position, and then it come down. Break it up and set it down on a 3-point. It's a disaster. We all have got briefings for our planes, but do we also have briefings for the pilots? Now I have Fred's checklist. This is my checklist when everything else is completed in the approach. Fred's checklist is very simple. I can tell you it's stick back, stick full back, stick into the wind and keep your heels down. Those 3 things I'm always telling myself 10 seconds before I land. Stick full back, stick into the wind and heels down. And then something like this can't happen. Maybe for most of the other pilots it's not necessary, but I'm still not an expert, I'm still more or less a beginner, and for me it's necessary to tell me this. Because I'm not flying every day. Sometimes when I have bad weather I can fly in 4 weeks one time, and doing 4 weeks nothing, and you have stress in your company, you can forget some things. So that's the most important thing. I have a picture that I will show you now. What happened? We all learned in our school that stick full back during the rollout is very important, but depending on the wind. There was a Spanish bird dog. He was taxiing, not landing, taxiing on the runway, taxiway, stick full back with heavy tailwind. You won't believe it. For me, I thought it's impossible, but it happened. It was a very experienced pilot with 2,000 or more hours. He had stick full back during the taxi on the taxiway. A gust of tailwind hits him, moved the tail up. I think maybe he was scared and added also some brakes or whatever. But now the tail is up and the area where the wind can bring more effect is now on the stabilizer, elevator and on the wings. And the plane, chuck, whoop, flipped over. It is completely damaged. Both wings broken, elevator, stabilizer, rudder stabilizer, ailerons, cowling. The fuselage has about 25 cracks. The whole plane is damaged. The engine, of course, propeller, everything is damaged. Yeah? Just because of holding the stick full back with tailwind. Very bad. I think we all have to learn from this. I thought the tail is very heavy and it's impossible, but as we can see, as the practice shows us, it is impossible, and you can destroy a bird dog completely with this kind of working with your controls. Okay, so far that's it. Don't forget, never land with crosswind with flap 60. The most important thing, always stick back, center the end, point at the end of the runway, and keep your plane parallel to the center line of your runway. Don't let the plane go out more than 5 degrees into one direction, and you will never have problems with your bird dog. Enjoy it, and to all other bird dog pilots, take care. Especially, please control your tail gear, because what happens with the tail gear? In some point of the landing, when you're landing, you're fast enough, your rudder makes most of the work. But when your speed is getting slower, the effectiveness of your rudder gets less. That's why stick full back is so important, to press the Scott tail gear on the ground, and at some point of the landing, most of the part to make the correct directional control is with the Scott tail wheel in combination with the rudder, of course. Okay, if you have questions, you can always write me. It's birddog@gmx.at. Enjoy your plane and watch my other videos. Bye!